Hi, this is Kathy Vick, and this stands as an introduction for people who are either unfamiliar with my work or unfamiliar with this concept that I explain called Ascension. So I want to do this to explain how to access my work, but also to explain what it is you'll be accessing. And the content of the work, what's helpful, depending on where you're at. So, enough, I think, has been explained about how this all came to be, but to be real clear, I have always been a different kind of person. I've always heard a different drum, and I was never comfortable with that. And I studied quietly because odd things happened to me, things that I couldn't explain. And if I would, I knew it would not be probably very good for me if I explained what was going on. Like visions and visitations and thoughts, and I knew them to be, real and loving, very loving and helpful, always helpful. And then as I aged, I found that this guidance, or this peace that was within me, but never ever outside of me, and very hard to access at times internally, kind of, I don't know, came into my life in the form of teachers and helpers and therapists and counselors and friends. And so I was early on set on a highly spiritual path, and a very unconventional one at that. Because my first teacher in psychic arts, things like, what's that called when you can touch something and learn about it? And when you have visions, you can see the clairaudience and the clairsentience, just this stuff that you can, ESP stuff. That started as a teenager, using a pendulum and stuff. And then in the 90s, I encountered a group of energies that were channeled through a woman, and I studied with those people for 2 years, and they taught me all about Ascension, which was consistent with my training and my love for who I call my brother, Jesus, and always have. He's the love of my life, really, in many respects. And so I encountered the teachers, and then I just went on a path of living, and had a number of things that were tricky and hard, just like everybody. And then in 2012, actually in October of 2011, some weird things started to happen for me, with my body changing and no longer being able to tolerate food the way and drink what I was drinking and eating anyway. And so I had to change how I ate and drank. I could have taken steroids and gone that route, but I decided to just listen to my body for a change. And it steered me right. Right before then, in 2011, by that time, I was on a lot of pharmaceuticals. I'd been chronically depressed. I had chronic pain. I was on hormonal replacement therapy. There's a lot going on that wasn't great. And I weighed around 300 pounds. And by the road trip I took in June of 2012, I had a slammin' bod. I was at college weight. My hair was curly where it once had been straight. I could tolerate wearing earrings. And all of these changes, and in my life, I was encountering really amazing changes, and they weren't easy. None of them were easy. But the magic of it, I knew this energy. It's like I fell asleep in 1994 after my teachers went away, and I just lived as a human in the land of man. And I kind of swore off the religious and not the religious, the spiritual. Didn't have a teacher. So about 20 years, just fumbling. Then everything changed. The lights went on. And I wanted to talk to my son about it, but every time I did, it would upset him. His understanding of God is much different than mine, and he felt mine was very, very rudimentary and elementary and distressing to hear. And I didn't have anyone else to talk to, so I took to the pen because I love to write. My first essay was called Judas Energy. And then I began to write more and more because things were happening in my life that were teaching me. I was encountering things or having experiences, and I'd walk away being blown away with my understandings and the gifts that people had given me unawares. And this guidance was really coming on strong, an internal kind of intuition that was more like a GPS. And then I stumbled upon this name that I thought really described everything, deeply awake. And I found a website called lightworkers.org. First I was at Galactic Free Press, and I've been on other free websites. I didn't have any money, but I had a need to write, and I had a need for community, so I went to places that would allow you to blog for free. And I worked at Galactic Free Press, and then I moved everything over to lightworkers.com. I was working in both areas simultaneously for a while in 12. But I moved over to lightworkers.com, and I was there as Magartha, Magartha, from 2012 until 2014. I call that my big-ass library and everything from the very beginning. I think one of the very first things I did on that site was, hey, is anybody else having these heat flashes? Like this weird kiln in your chest? And I, copped to some other things that were going on. And these wacky thoughts about Ascension. And I had to reach out. I had to. I had not had a community in 20 years. I needed to find the others. And I did, and they found me. And I kept writing, and I kept writing, and I kept having weird experiences, big ones. And I wrote about them all. Now, from 2012 until 2014, roughly, I wrote Deeply Awake, and then I wrote, I wrote Ascension Field Notes. I wrote, which was a collection of essays that I wanted people to have a toolkit of ideas and helps. And then always real-time reporting of things that were going on. My personal stuff was cloaked, but there were big movements going on, and I captured all of that. And when weird things were going on, they were happening to somebody who did not understand what was going on. It was not scary, but it was weird. In 2014, I got a website called kathyvick.com. And it's Kathy Vicks, Deeply Awake. And then I began to post there as my primary site. All of this information, the entire library, is available except for the, hey, is this thing on? Hey, this is getting kind of weird, on Tumblr. But that's how you get to my stuff. Since that time, I did Deeply Awake Entangled, and I was in that place and then went to Deeply Awake, I think. And then something unusual happened to me. Time passed. The miracles and the weirdness and the light shows and the unusual people and situations kept coming. I kept writing. I was writing like 10,000 word essays 3 and 4 times a week and working full time. I was on fire. You just have to read a couple of words to know that they're too beautiful to be from around here. Something happens when I write that's pretty amazing and helpful. And then in April, of 2016. Something new was in the air. I'd lost my job. I knew it was time to do something. I knew it was time. I didn't know how long, how many years do I have to go through this? Of eating pattern changes, sleep pattern changes, family dynamic changes, where everything is just flipped over on its head. How long? And Melissa, my friend Melissa, she befriended me way back in, I think, a long time ago. Many of the friends I have now are devoted readers from way back when. And Melissa lives here in Colorado, and she hosted an event in 2014 that was amazing. That night, I captured photographic evidence that something's up, guys. It was a summer solstice of 2012. And I conjured a Merkaba, a white Merkaba. That's just one of the things I've done and documented. Never with a, hey, look what I did, isn't this great? More like just sort of mortification of, what the fuck? What does this mean? What the, like that. So if you're going through that, guess what? Give a friend who is pretty loudmouth and has no shame. Well, she had a lot of shame, which she worked out with her writing. And then Melissa, the hostess from the solstice, said to me in April of 2016, what was going on about how wonderful it was to have an old soul who would just totally be cool with the really weird, freaky deaky stuff. And just is honest and it's not charged. She just talks about her visions, and it's just the way it is. I said, oh my God, I need to hear more of that. And Melissa said, well, then why don't you do it? Why don't you do little videos, girly? And it began. April 17th of 2016, I did my very first video called Embodiment, where I pose a question. What happens if you have conflict in your life? What happens if it's hard and there's conflicts? What happens if you're the cause of these conflicts at times? Does that make you ineligible for ascension? I asked. I said, well, of course the answer is no. And then I spent quite a lot of time in the Valley of Doubt. And the video library that I give you is extensive, beautiful. It's as extensive and wordy and verbose and beautiful as my written work. But it has a different feeling tone, guys. And I need to explain how to use Deeply Awake now, okay? I've done it once before, but it's not been quite so clear, and I want to make this short and sweet and helpful. From 2012 to 2016, I have a body of work that is, for the most part, in written form. At times, people would be really loving my channeling, and so they would convert my text to audio for me and put it on the web. And I have a lot of people who know me from those channelings. So there's a lot of written work. And I wasn't really so much in the Valley of Doubt as in that meadow of wonder that you get to frolic in before you hit the hard stuff. And you get rid of those attachments that are closest to you energetically. I'll talk about that in a minute. So although loss and change was evident and the weirdness was pronounced, there's a gentleness to it. And the purpose of those words and all that work was to calm me down to remind me that it really is okay to believe that love is real and that God is love and that I am love. Therefore, can't say those words. And to give myself breadcrumbs, because I would have these high notes. I'd have a vision, or I'd have a really weird thing happen, or I'd conjure a vortex in the sky, or I'd do all kinds of weird stuff. I had no one to talk to about it. I had to express what was going on. I had to reassure myself it was okay. And what I found is when I had those moments, sometimes I couldn't remember them again right at first. And I found it very, very helpful to capture the moment. To leave myself a breadcrumb for when I was sad or scared or drowning in change or loss. So I used Deeply Awake that way. Then something else happened. The camera went on. And a face that I never had seen before, I got to fall in love with. I got to see my depth and my pain and my brilliance and my strength. I'm a visual person, and I had been blind. So I used this to exercise a lot of pain that I had carried quietly and bore because it had to be borne. Always with the intention of simply this: if you're stuck and you need a stick of dynamite, push play, because it's all coded. All of it's coded. It's all interconnected, guys. Hit one tape and it'll lead to others, and it is a non-stop event that never has to end. It just spins out there for anybody who wants it. But the energy is immense, and the information is highly coded. That means if you don't have the keys in your hand, it's going to be hard for you to understand. And you may have a reaction you don't like. And I can't take responsibility for that because I know what I'm packing. So, to be clear, this is about ascension. And I'm coming to you now because the project of Deeply Awake, of that ascension, is complete. And I never thought I'd be able to say that this lifetime. The videos chronicle the changes, and it was important to witness those changes. My affect, my countenance, but not a whole lot of the content changes. Just, in the end, a softening of delivery, a humility that had been lacking, and a confidence that is self-evident. It's, why would I not be confident? But this ascension also comes with some stuff that's kind of weird, including adopting a new natal chart, which I hear the young ones are doing. But I didn't get there by scanning the web and saying, yeah, I think this might be a good idea. I got there by living it and then explaining it as I went, describing it. So that's what Deeply Awake is, and kind of how to use it. For me now, we just went through a second eclipse. I consider the set of the ones in February of 2017, and then we just went through the total eclipse of the sun of August 21. And with that, for me, my magnetics are now different. My trajectory has changed, and I used those eclipses. Well, I had to. It was part of coming. It was part of the timing. Now, I know that sounds really prophetic. I know it sounds like I think really highly of myself. In fact, it sounds like I might be one of those delusional ones. So I'll end by telling you, this is about God. It's about Creator. It's about this new energy. It's about being alive for the divide and for the new world in 2012 and what that means, and that we're still alive and it would appear we're flourishing. Even though we are, let's see, well, less and less, but pretty covered with shit right now. Nobody crapped on us. It's just the way it is. It's part of the Ascension process. This, for me, since I came in this lifetime, the point was to ascend. I've been very clear about that. So that's what this project is, Deeply Awake. It's witnessing one person going through the ascension process. There are so many who have. I'm only one. I'm no different than anyone who's gotten that resuscitated breath, who is willing to open their mouths and say, yes. So, each of us, though, have an identity, and each of us, the whole point is to gather all identities, all signatures, all expressions into one. That's your identity. Kind of hard to be that when you're paying bills and getting kicked around by your spouse, huh? Good luck with that. Well, you have more luck now. You have me. So the idea is that this is done for me. It's the mechanics. And it was done in amnesia, in wonder, and sometimes in fear. Just like you might be in. I purposefully did this for free. I felt it would be ransoming God, or this time, or whatever you want to call it, to put money on it. But the intention is for me to edit my written work bit by bit, and then publish the books in volumes, and then to transcribe and index the videos and the information. And all this information can be indexed and correlated. The whole life stands as it's pristine in its numerology and its astrology. It's wacky what I came with under the hood. And I'm not the only one. I've been saying that since the beginning. I'm not the only one. That's insane. Stop doing that. If you're watching, don't you understand? You're one too. Because I'm going to give you the punchline right up front before you begin. You and I are the same. In one very fundamental way. In way more than one. But let's get down to the basics, shall we? You have human DNA? Well, so do I. And you may be more, whatever, Syrian or Pleiadian or reptilian or whatever. There's a lot that we don't know that we've made judgments about. The bottom line is, no matter where you're from, O-star person, no matter what your most comfortable biology is, there is always more. Always. This Ascension project is far bigger than this planet alone. We've all been hearing that. I was given visions and I see, I understand. With these visions came incredible downloads regarding high physics, electromagnetics. It's stuff that I had... What? Sure, I have a scientific mind and I'm I'm smart, but there's things I would opt to read and things I wouldn't. So there's a lot that is contained within this body of work. And much of it is like little seeds. There's the theory of validity. There's something that's very much like a screenplay that I wrote early. There's lots and lots and lots and lots and lots. So I say have at it. Enjoy it. Start wherever you are called to start. It doesn't matter. That's how you use the work. Just like for me, any other kind of work, any other kind of body of work. If I'm called to read Seth, let's say, then I'm usually called to one particular book or not, but sometimes not. And if that's the case, even if it's a particular book, then I get still and I say, okay, well, there's a reason. This book is in my hand. Will you kindly show me why? And I open to where it feels right and I read. And that's what I'm supposed to know. It always is. Always. Without fail. And I do that with a lot of things. Anymore, I do it with most things. Lead and be led with resonance. But you can do that with this work too. Because the truth is that here we are talking about ascension, and I am actually telling you it's a process that I can talk about as having gone through. It never ends. There's always more. And it really is strictly biologic. You and I are the same because we have the same DNA. And how much DNA do you have? You have the same amount as me. There's no difference. And DNA contains a lot that is not understood by scientists yet because they lack a quantum lens. They lack imagination. They lack information. And all of that is going to change very soon. You'll see. If I can go through this process, well, it's pretty evident that my heart beat for it. And that that's the only thing I intended to do here. Well, I had a couple other things I intended to do, but, whatever. This is what matters right now. So, here it is. I'm really, really, really happy to be able to offer this to you. So use the work any way you wish, but it really is okay if you don't get chronological on it, because good luck with that. I'm a prodigious writer. So I have talked about a new project, and that project I really, really mislabeled. Oh, so I'm kind of excited because that means I can keep the Deeply Awake moniker, but I'm going to be doing interviews with cool people. Bottom line, this is a big, huge pain in my ass if things don't get better. Why? Why go through all of this if there isn't something at the end of it that's better than what I have? That was a hard thing to believe in when all around me there was destruction and removal of attachment. And that's what a lot of this stuff wound up being. I lived through it. You can too. You have a friend now. You have a sister. You have somebody who gives a damn about how you feel internally, and who recognizes that you probably know things that others don't and have put you down and been scared of. Well, of course, they'd tell you to take a seat and be quiet if you shake them up with your observations. Maybe you're like what I was like that. And now I'm really glad because I can just walk around. Oh my God, this next part's so fun. My kid put me on a dating website, and it's like So many things are happening all at once. It's so great, and I feel alive in a brand new way, as does he. So I was keyed for these things, and I'm giving you this gift. Oh my God, on such a beautiful day. It's so symbolic. I wanted to give you an idea of how to use it, though, and to say thank you. And if you want to drop me a line, that always makes me feel really super happy. Because I did this in relative isolation, and for the most part in poverty and celibacy. Except for a nice break there for a little bit. But the floodgates are about to open. Glory, hallelujah! And so I've taken on these, I'm realizing it's like every time I get like bombed or, yeah, nothing's going to go right for me. Well, that was my own life. Just look at the geometry. Just look at that natal chart. Woo! Icky. Hard. And this new one, oh, it feels so good. And it's a natural progression, just like everything else. Having visions in casinos and all that kind of stuff. I've reached my own conclusions about what that means about my identity. But the bottom line is that, you know, with these big solar events, I can just go boop and I'm far away. I know where I'm from, and I know what I am, and I know what I run. And I'm not afraid of it. And I'm not going to lord it over you. Because you know why? You have this DNA too. It's the same freaking connection. You think you can't contain this? Well, you may not have the like Akashic memories, but if you have intention, you have everything. You have everything. You don't need anything else. Do you think that this is happening to people who only have these kind of technical things? What matters is the heart. And that's why that writing is so sweet and soft and so helpful. Oh, and reassuring. And then it's like this collie comes out and says, okay, we got to get into the shit now. Let's talk about this bully stuff. Let's talk about being female in this paradigm. How do you recover, ladies? How do you recover, gentlemen? Well, the energy's helping us. And these breadcrumbs help us. And the road is littered with breadcrumbs, guys. There were people who were able to devote their whole lives to this and knew this was the time. So they were more prodigious than me in their writing. Thank God. And some only had to go like every couple weeks and bam, your whole world changed. Like Lee Carroll and Cryon. So there's a lot of breadcrumbs on the road. I'm only one. And I'm no different than you. I just, I had to do this. Partly so I could make this video today on my son's birthday. A day of truly new beginnings, 3311. And blessings. And victory. And relief. So, it's available, and I wanted to explain. So thank you very much for your time, and you'll see different things from me now.